Street lamp flickers on wet stone. You curl beneath the broken phone. One paw lifted, barely there. Two ribs showing through your hair. Three steps closer through the pour. Four walls waiting by the door. The thunder hushes as I kneel. Now your heart beats next to mine. Every tremble turns to time. No more wandering alone. You are seen, you're not alone. 5 towels wrapped around your frame. 6 hours calling out your name. 7 breaths slow on the mat. 8 dreams where you don't. Now your heart beats next to mine. Every tremble turns to time. No more shadows in your eyes. You've got sunshine in your cry. 11 walks without a leash. 12 meals shared in patient peace. 13 nights you nudge my head. 14 reasons I still stand. Now your heart beats next to mine. Every tremble turns to time. No more counting wounds or fears. You are home and soul. Street lamp flickers on wet stone. You curl beneath a broken phone. One paw lifted, barely there. 2 ribs showing through your hair. 3 steps closer through